Last but not least, someone asked, what is the teaching that we have concerning multiple wives? Now, I'm going to go deep into this, and I'm going into it strictly from the scriptures, and I'm not dealing with anyone biased on how they personally feel about it on either side. When I say this, we have for a long time strayed away from this topic altogether. Why? Because either way, someone is going to be unsatisfied. And the example I can give you, we have stayed away from it because I've known it, especially after being in past Israelite situations, that if you talk about a man can have more than one wife, eventually that's going to give a person that have the spirit of wanting to deal with a lot of women the green light to do it. And then claim the Most High is putting the spirit on them to do this. You understand? And now they're going to use that as an excuse, say, well, it's lawful. So, when really they were looking to satisfy themselves. It had nothing to do with taking on another wife, making sure that she's provided for, making sure it's according to the law. And that's why I shied away from it altogether. The other thing is, on the other side of it, if I teach in the scriptures that it did happen, you would have sisters who would feel threatened that they're going to lose everything and lose their relationships or whatever the case is. If their man feel that they can do this because they've been struggling with their man in the past who wanted to deal like that. And why make it lawful for something that can lead to whoremongering? Right? So I can understand the fear on both sides. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go into the scriptures, all in all, and just break them down according to the scriptures. All right? Now, also, with the brothers that are set up in the different areas, it's not going to be like it was in the past where someone, unless they come in with a relationship, it's not going to be like it was in the past where there was a thing where you can just say, okay, she's my wife now, or whatever the case is. They have to go through a regular situation according to scriptures with the elder in their area. Okay, which they go to the elder and say, well, this is the person I met, and then the elder sit down and give them the rules of what will happen and what they would have to do concerning the sister's father and the whole thing. So if we do it that way, that takes the onus off the church, and it's up to that person, that brother and that sister to follow the law according to the scriptures. You go ask you go ask the father for his daughter. Period. You go ask the father for his daughter. You do it that way, now you're doing it according to the scriptures, and you're taking the church out of the equation of your scenario, because what the Most High put together, let no man put asunder. But if you do it according to what the Most High say, then there's no issue there. Even if you don't go the way in which you go under the government's licensing, in which you go get a license and all that, in which now the government becomes the authority over your marriage. You can still have an agreement between that sister, her father, and you in writing, and you can actually have it certified, which is legal bound, but yet the government don't have power over your relationship. All right? It can't be a scenario where someone has a relationship and then the guy pop up and say, well, you know what? I want another wife. And say, well, listen, look, and then pull somebody into the equation and say, look at our new wife here. It don't work like that. Okay? And another thing, let's go to the beginning. Let's go to Genesis, the first chapter. And another thing we're not going to do is we're not going to allow other people on the other side to pull out scriptures that doesn't apply either. I know some people go into the scriptures especially the sisters, they'll go in the scriptures where it says, in the beginning it wasn't so, and claim that they multiple wives because the Most High didn't create two women. That's total philosophy. We can't go into that either. That's philosophical and it's open for argument. Truth is not open for argument. Truth stands by itself. If there's a place where you can argue, then there's no truth there. So we're going to deal with this as it is written. Go where it says, flesh of my flesh, bone of my bone.
It's the book of Genesis, the 2nd chapter.
Go ahead.
This is verse 22. And the rib which the Most High Ahiah had taken from man, made he a woman, and brought her unto the man. And Adam said, This is now bone of my bones, and flesh of my flesh. She shall be called woman, because she was taken out of man. Therefore shall a man leave his father and his mother, and shall cleave unto his wife.
Go ahead.
And they shall be one flesh. And they were both naked, and the
and
man...
when it says shall cleave to his wife and shall be one flesh, which means they are one. They operate together. Now the example I can give you, let me go through some examples because you have some Hebrews out there who teach this as a doctrine. And the doctrine they teach is that it's okay for a man to have as many wives as he wants. That's a bold-faced lie. That's not all right. That's not all right according to Scripture. That's a lie. A man cannot have as many wives as he wants. All right? Now, I'm going to prove that. But I'm going to show you some examples that's used where it happened in righteousness. Let's go to Jacob when he received Rachel and Leah. And this, I'm going to show you this example because some people may go and say, well, in the beginning, it was only one person. Well, you can't say that if the Most High had the 12 tribes of Israel come through two women. Okay? So you think the Most High didn't see that the 12 tribes would come through Rachel and Leah? So that happened. And even though we should not desire to live like that, to tell you the truth, because we're going to go into what Paul spoke about it also. All right? Even so, we shouldn't desire to live like that. We can't ignore that the Most High brought forth the 12 tribes, not just one woman. Okay? Now, before we get to Rachel and Leah, let's go to Sarah and Abram first, our forefather. When Abram could not have any children.
This is the book of Genesis, chapter 15.
Go ahead.
I'm going to start at verse 3. And Abram said, Behold, to me thou hast given no seed, and lo, one born in my house is mine heir.
Go ahead.
Verse 4. And behold, the word of the Lord came unto me, saying, This shall not be thine heir, but he that shall come forth out of thine own bowels shall be thine heir.
Go ahead.
And he brought him forth abroad and said, Look now toward heaven, and tell the stars if thou be able to number them. And he said unto him, So shall thy seed be. And he believed in the Lord, and he counted it to him for righteousness. And he said unto him, I am the Lord that brought thee forth out of out of Ur of the Chaldees, to give thee this land to inherit it. And he said, The Most High Power, whereby shall I know that I shall inherit it? And he said unto him, Take me an heifer of 3 years old, and a she-goat of 3 years old.
Let's go straight down to Sarah.
This is chapter 16. Now Sarai, Abram's wife, bare him no children.
She bare him no children.
And she had a handmaid, an Egyptian, whose name was Hagar.
Go ahead.
And Sarah said unto Abram, Behold, now the Lord hath restrained me from bearing. I pray thee, go in It may be that I may obtain children by her.
Now listen to this clearly. Abram, through the lust of himself, wasn't seeking another woman. Abram didn't look at Hagar and say, you know what? And bring her to Sarah and say, well, listen, you know, she's going to be. No, that was Sarah's handmaid. That means she was paid to work in a house to serve Sarah. She belonged to Sarah. So Sarah, out of all the handmaids working in the house, she seen something in Hagar and said, you know what? I'm not going to be the woman that will deny this great man his seed. If any man need a child, Abram need a child. So I'm going to sacrifice my feelings and bring forth Hagar to him, to wife, so that he can have an heir. That's how much she loved Abram. Now that was an honor, even though it hurt her to do so, because it showed you in scripture, especially in Joshua, that this wasn't a good feeling. But she knew that she had to do this above her feelings. And this was before the Spirit came to Abram to show him that that woman that's barren, she's going to have that chosen seed. But before that, in her flesh, Sarah thought it was the right thing to do. So this wasn't that man going out finding a woman saying, yeah, I want another wife. This was a circumstance. The Most High was doing two things. He was showing his promise through Sarah in the future that a woman could not bear would bring forth a child that would be the promised child and have more children than the bondwoman. And also, he was using Hagar to bring forth a nation, Ishmael, that would play prominent in prophecy in the future. So overall, outside of these two people, there was a grand plan by the Most High. That's what we have to see here. All right. That was the plan of the Most High. Abram looking around to see which one of Sarah's handmaids were cute, or was shaped a certain type of way, and was like, okay, I need that to be my wife. It wasn't that type of thing. And I'm saying this because that's what Israelites are doing today. That's what they teach. I can have as many wives. You have people teaching, listen, not only can I have many wives as I want, they be teaching, I'm going to take all the nations. One going to be doing this and one going to be doing that. I'm going to have wives and ravish them. These guys are out of their mind, saying they're going to rape women and all that. But these are the places brothers and sisters are frequenting on YouTube because it's entertainment, and then coming to our site when they want to exercise their own feelings and claiming that it's okay to just have any woman they want. When you can't use, as we can see, Abram and Sarah for that example. Okay? So we're going to go through some of the examples. Obviously, you can't use Abram and Sarah for that example, because this was a grand plan by the Most High. Now let's go into Jacob. When he wanted Rachel.
This is the book of Genesis, the 29th chapter, the first verse. Then Jacob went on his journey and came into the land of the people of the east. And he looked, and behold, a well in the field, and lo, there were 3 flocks of sheep lying in it. For out of that well they watered the flocks, and a great stone was upon the well's mouth. Jump down to verse 15. And Laban said unto Jacob, because thou art my brother, shouldest thou therefore serve me for naught? Tell me, what shall thy wages be? And Laban had 2 daughters. The name of the elder was Leah, and the name of the younger was Rachel. Leah was tender-eyed, but Rachel was beautiful and well-favored.
When it says tender-eyed, Rachel Leah wasn't as pretty. She was okay. That means she wasn't that pretty to look on compared to Rachel. Rachel was absolutely beautiful. So Laban said, well, which one of my daughters would you want to marry? Because why? The Most High was blessing Jacob. And when Jacob went around Laban, Laban was getting more resources and power than he'd ever had on earth. So he said, listen, I need to keep this guy around. The God is with him. The Spirit is with him. So he said, listen, what can I do to keep you around here? Read on.
Verse 18. And Jacob loved Rachel and said, I will serve thee 7 years for Rachel.
He says, I will work 7 years for her. Read.
Thy younger daughter.
So that was an agreement between her and between him and the father. This is not meeting someone like we all be guilty of and we're guilty of in the past. And just saying, well, I'm going to pick up a wife. No. You have to go to this woman's father. That's number one. If we don't take these steps, then it's not marriage. Read.
Verse 19. And Laban said, it is better that I give her to thee, than that I should give her to another man. Abide with me. And Jacob served 7 years for Rachel, and they seemed unto him a few days, for the love he had to her.
Go ahead.
And Jacob said unto Laban, give me my wife, for my days are fulfilled.
He worked the whole 7 years as an agreement to the father. Now imagine that. That's utter respect right there. Read.
And Jacob said unto Laban, give me my wife, for my days are fulfilled, that I may go in unto her. And Laban gathered together all the men of the place, and made a feast.
So they made a feast. So it's okay to have a feast, because this is the way the Hebrews did it. They had a feast. Read.
Verse 23. And it came to pass in the evening that he took Leah his daughter, and brought her to him, and he went in unto her.
So, but in the night, when it was time to release the daughter into Jacob's chamber, he released Leah instead of the woman he worked for. Read.
Verse 24. And Laban gave unto his daughter Leah Zilpah his handmaid for a handmaid. And it came to pass in that in the morning, behold, it was Leah. And he said,
so he woke up in the next morning after consummating with her and realized it was the wrong daughter. This wasn't the daughter he worked for. Read.
And he said to Laban, what is this that thou hast done unto me? Did not I serve with thee for Rachel?
Go ahead.
Wherefore then thou hast beguiled me? And Laban said, it must not be so done in our country, to give the younger before the firstborn.
So now he used a technicality. I have to give the firstborn first. You chose the younger. Was this Jacob's decision to have 2 wives? No. It wasn't his decision. He was tricked into Leah. It wasn't through the lust of his heart or his desire to have another wife. But because of the agreement and the customs of that country, he had to abide if he wanted Rachel. So what did the guy do? Laban played. He withheld information, what I would call lying through omission. He knew, according to the customs of his country, you don't give away the second daughter before the first daughter. The daughter that comes first must be given her hand in marriage first. But he didn't tell Jacob that, lying through omission. Why? Because he needed Jacob to stay. Jacob was blessing his land. Read.
Verse 27.
Go ahead.
Fulfill her week, and we will give thee this also for the service which thou hast served me yet 7 other years. And Jacob did so, and fulfilled her week. And he gave him Rachel his daughter.
So that week it's talking about is a 7-year period. So he had to serve another 7 years, which is a week in years. for Leah. He worked 14 years in an agreement with the father to finally get the wife he wanted from the beginning. See that? And the 12 tribes came through these two women. And again, it was the will of the Most High. This was not through the lust of the flesh. This was not what Jacob desired from the beginning. It was what the Most High ordained from the beginning. Okay? I'm giving some examples. Now, brothers, straight out, including any man out there, the patriarchs have already been established. So there's no reason that we can use any of these excuses, because this was established for the patriarchs, so that the 12 could come through them, and we are born. And I'm glad the Most High did this with Leah. I mean, Judah, we came through Leah. Okay? Christ came through Leah. So you can't, so on the other side, sisters can't say it's wrong in that context and say, well, the Most High didn't have it so in the beginning, and use all these other philosophical terms, because what they're adamant against. When the Most High had Judah, which Christ came through, come through a woman who Jacob didn't even want. Now examine that. So you can't say that that was evil if the Most High had Christ come through that second woman, a woman that Jacob didn't even want. We can't go there. We can do the arguments within the proper context of the scripture without taking the scripture and using it for our personal feelings. Now, we know there's a lot of cultures that still exercise these scenarios, in which they go through all the law, multiple wives as part of the culture, and there's no big deal about it, because the culture is used to that particular type of living to some degree. Why? Because in order for a man to operate like that, of course, this guy is already rich. He's respected. He's in position to be able to handle these particular situations. And the woman who agreed with it want a better life. So that's an agreement in cultures that actually deal with it. And they have to do the whole thing. They have to go to the father, speak to the father, give the father an agreement of what the father asked for. The father must give a dowry. The same things we're going to read in the scriptures must happen. It's not just you looking at a woman saying, okay, I got another wife now. It don't work that way. So there are a lot of cultures that operate like that. Now, in the Western world culture, usually they don't operate like that, because because it wasn't in their culture, number one. Number two, the Bibles tell you that their seed is as the seed of Sodom and Gomorrah. Okay? They don't even care. A lot of the other nations don't care about, reprocreating and bringing forth the children of Israel, and bringing forth their families and big families and all that. Why? Because some of them like alternative lifestyles and want to deal with women or their own women or other men anyway. So not only do they reject the regular union of just a man and woman, they want to deal with what they call homosexuality. So this is the society that have taught us what a marriage should be. Okay? So I'm just being straight out here. There are cultures you can go into who are Hebrews right now that's living in Africa, and they deal with multiple wives, and it's not an issue. Okay? So we cannot say that the influence of how we are taught in our society don't have an impact on how we view this particular action. We can't say that. Now, the majority of Israelites out there today who teach this, who would like to promote this, and I'm going to tell you, it leads to a lot of pain and suffering and death and hell. But a lot of the Israelites out there are teaching this, and a lot of young men are using this as a card to be able to just get any woman they want. And that's not right. That's evil. And they're using Solomon as an example. They're using David as an example when what David did was evil. He killed the brother so that he can have the brother's woman. That was evil. So the people you're using for an example were praying to the Most High for forgiveness because they got wives not because the Most High sanctioned it, but through the lust of the flesh. You understand? And the Most High did forgive David. You understand? But through Solomon's sin, evil went to the next level when he began to deal with all these different wives. Why? Because Solomon had the wisdom of the whole world. Anything that operated in the earth, Solomon had not only the knowledge of, he understood how it operated. And if this information get into these satanic people's hands, they would use it against God's people. So who did the Gentiles send in? The Gentile kings sent in their women as a weapon against Israel. And this is who the Israelites use as an example of having multiple wives. Solomon. Let's go there.
It's the book of 1 Kings, the 11th chapter.
Go ahead.
1 Kings chapter 11, verse 1.
If the father is deceased or there is no father, then you have to look at the next of kin. You have to look at an uncle. Okay? If there is no uncle, then you have to look at a brother. Okay? Usually if the father dies, the oldest brother in line becomes the father of that child. If there's no brother, if there's none of them, then it's the brother. If there's no brothers, then you have to look at the man that have been the influence over the family. Okay? Read it.
1 Kings chapter 11, verse 1. But King Solomon loved many strange women, together with the daughter of Pharaoh, woman of the Moabites, Ammonites, Edomites, Zidonians, and Hittites.
These are all the women Solomon loved. Read.
Verse 2. The nations concerning which the Lord said unto the children of Israel, Ye shall not go into them, neither shall they come in unto you, for surely they will turn away your heart after their gods. Solomon clave unto these in love.
Go ahead.
Verse 3. And he had 700 wives.
He had what?
700 wives.
He had 700 wives.
Princesses and 300 concubines. And his wives turned away his heart. For it came to pass when Solomon was old, that his wives turned away his heart after other gods.
That is crystal clear. Now, this is the example that Israelites used to say it's okay to have wives. And they would say, read, 700 wives. You wouldn't even tell me I can't have 5, and Solomon had, I done seen these things. What's wrong with me having 5 or 6? Solomon had 700.
What's the difference between a wife and a concubine?
A wife.
Concubine is basically a wife of another nation.
Of another nation.
Why
She's
is
still a wife.
She's
Like,
of another nation.
yes.
it-
Like similar to Hagar would have been considered Abram's concubine. She still have the same, rights as a wife, but she's not a Hebrew, so she was usually considered a concubine. And but I'm gonna tell you how the Hebrews spend this that I've grown and learned around, and I've seen where high priests and all that sit there and say, "Well, concubines, brother, it's just meat." This is what they taught. Concubines is meat. I've sat and listen. I've sat there and I'm like, what? Concubines is someone you can use for whatever you need to do, but your wife is the one let me tell you, this is what was taught. Okay? And see, this is why when people listen to all these different groups out there that sound like they out of their mind, talking about they're going to rape people and kill people, this is what they teach. When you got some guy out there teaching, listen, I got a white concubine, I got a Chinese concubine, because in their mind, these are just women that they're dealing with. They're just me, but I got my wife that, you know, that the Most High blessed me with. And this is what they'll say to you. And see, and this is the reason sisters are adamantly fighting against the whole thing. Because this is what sisters have to contend with. When brothers go on YouTube and go in these different areas and all that and start studying, these are the things that they're being taught to these brothers. And then they, just like the brothers may call us up and all that, they call these other guys up too. And these guys be telling them, yeah, brother, you can get 3, 4. This is what you got. You don't even have to work. Get 3, 4. They can work. Brother, you need to be sitting, you know, this is the teachings that have nothing to do with scriptures. And this is why people are so much, this is adamancy about it. One moment. Go ahead.
This is verse 4. For it came to pass when Solomon was old, that his wives turned away his heart after other gods.
Go ahead.
His heart was not perfect with the Most High his power, as was the heart of David his father.
Go ahead.
For Solomon went after Ashtoreth, the goddess of the Sidonians.
So these women started teaching him, weaken him, and began to teach him to worship different gods. That was the fall of the children of Israel. And because of this, the kingdom was split. So how can they use this as an example? All right. Now, here's the scripture before we go into the New Testament. Here's the scriptures that people might get confused with. Well, before I go that, let's go to the law if a man takes another wife in Exodus. A concubine is still a wife. Okay? She's still a wife, but she's considered a wife, a concubine type of wife. She's not an Israelite type of wife. She's not of the same nation. It's still wifing a woman. Oh, okay, all right. Go ahead. Let's go to Exodus 21 and 10.
Exodus chapter 21 verse 10.
Go ahead.
It says, if he take him another wife,
If a man take him another wife.
her food, her raiment, and her duty of marriage should not diminish.
Read it again.
If he take him another wife.
Now this was the law. If a man was to take another wife in the Old Testament. Read.
Her food, her raiment, and her duty.
Her food, her raiment. Read.
And her duty of marriage.
And her duty of marriage. That means your commitment to her and the things that she need.
Shall he not diminish.
Shall he not diminish. Which means there can be no fall off at all. If this man could take on another wife. Now imagine what a Hebrew man needed to have before he could actually take on another wife. You have to be almost rich beyond belief to have 2 houses, 2 cars, and making sure everyone is taken care of and there's total peace throughout the whole thing. That's impossible, especially in this day and time in which the power have been shifted, in which the women make more than men. Now, how can a man provide these things for one woman, let alone two, in these days and times?
Verse 11.
So it's not that you got two wives, you got a wife, and then you got two accomplices, or 3 or 4 accomplices. That's what it comes down to. All right. So when the brethren look at certain things, when people come and say, okay, we together, all right, brother, let me see the paperwork of the father and the agreement you made with the father. That's how it should be. And then if the guy do have all these things, then we look at Sarah as an example of, we need a scenario to say that, okay, you needed to do this. What is the scenario there? You know, she couldn't have children, or what's the scenario there? If you want to look at the scripture term and show an example of the reason why a man would pick up another wife. Read that again.
Verse 10. If he take him another wife, her food, her raiment, and her duty of marriage.
Her food, raiment, and duty of marriage.
Shall he not demand?
Read.
Verse 11. And if he do not these things unto her.
And if he don't do these things to her to make sure everything is right, read.
Then shall she go out free without money.
She can go out free, separated from this man without money. She can go ahead and live her life separate, because it can't happen. The agreement was to come together to make sure she was fine. So now you still have only one woman. You just don't have the one you had. She's free from you. Because you cannot provide all these duties, especially in a day of austerity. And you have some people, they can be living in their mother's basement talking about they got 2, 3 wives. Okay? And I'm just giving you some examples. Here's a scripture that brothers, that some people get conscrewed. Get Isaiah the 7th chapter.
As well.
Yes.
In you taking this law, for example, is there any examples where we can answer whether the woman, the first wife, has to sort of be in agreement? Is there any scriptures? So say if a man wanted to take another wife, it's a joint decision. Would that be correct, or
what the example was, that it must be an agreement, is Abram and Sarah.
Right.
You understand?
Because a lot of men obviously think
Yeah.
it's down to.
Now I'm going to tell you this too, because I'm going to go to the other side of this. Because you might have some sisters who've been dealing with some weird stuff growing up, who now seek an opportunity to want to bring another sister up in her bedroom. Some of that be going on too, where she be like, yeah, you want another woman? Because she want another woman. And now I hate to talk about these things, but that's for real. That's for real. And she'll come and say, yeah, it look like you need another wife. Look like you've been struggling. I need some help around the house here. When really, she want to dabble a little bit.
Another example to touch on what Josh just asked, the same thing that happened with Abraham and Sarah. The same exact thing happened with both Rachel and Leah when they agreed to give their handmaids to Jacob to bring forth some of the 12 tribes.
Yeah.
So,
yeah, that was a total agreement. Because, listen, you think Leah didn't know that Rachel's supposed to have been first? She went with it because she knew not only the blessings of this man, because let me tell you, they can tell a blessing when he can come around. The whole place was blessed. She was like, man, everyone loved Jacob. So she agreed. And Leah didn't use that as a situation. Leah was upset. I mean, Rachel was upset. Because the whole time he was courting Rachel. But she didn't use that as a pretext to get bitter and say, well, I don't want this man. It's like, no, that's my man. I'm going to wait another 7 years, and I'm going to bring forth children for this man. He's going to love me. I'm going to love him, and I'm not going to let this situation stop it. But that was the culture. That was the understanding. The majority of things we fight against in our society is our programming. So I can admit that I've been programmed a certain type of way, and not use that to look at the scriptures and claim, well, that scripture must not be saying that. No, your programming won't allow you to receive what you're seeing here. It was the culture that separated us from the righteousness of certain things that happened, but it was done in righteousness. Sisters are adamant against it because what's the chance of a man operating with righteousness? And you don't have nothing. It's impossible. So now you just brought forth another problem. That's just we have problems already. Now you got another problem we all have to take care of. You understand? And that's why sisters like, well, I don't want to deal with this. We got problems already and we have nothing, and you're going to bring another person in the equation? So the societal structure of what they've given us in the Western world won't allow us to do this and be able to fulfill the law accordingly. It's almost impossible. Now, I'm not going to sit there and say that something is unlawful that the Bible have a law on. But we still have to speak in common sense terms too. You understand? And I think some people were asking, well, why haven't we been touching this? Because there's no win on either side. I can explain it and break it on down, but at the end of the day, people are going to do what they're going to do. But now, if we put out a team out there, at least they can't do it and claim the church have been backing it up. That we're going to give the wisdom on both sides of this. We're going to give the wisdom on both sides of this. All right. We'll show the wisdom on both sides and then show what it said in the New Testament. All right. All right, read on.
This is the book of Isaiah chapter 4 verse 1. And in that day 7 women shall take hold of one man, saying.
Many Hebrews bring this out too. Saying that, see, I can have 7 wives. Well, you're missing the key point. Read that again.
In that day.
Are we in that day? The answer to that, absolutely not. And you know what? We'll be blessed as men to make it to this day. Because the only reason women are agreeing to this now is because there's a shortage of men due to the destruction of Jacob's trouble. Now, it's not the men going out looking for women. It's the women saying, well, listen, come on in. My husband will make sure you okay. We need more people to survive to get to the next day. You bring what you bring and let's pull this together. This is not a man going out saying, well, going out to some gathering saying, well, yeah, she looked nice. Or I got another wife. This ain't that type of situation here. It's going to show you what that day is. Read.
Saying, we will eat our own bread.
Now they're set because according to Exodus, the food, shelter, and raiment cannot diminish if you take on a wife. So they say, well, listen, I don't need you to physically take care of me. I'm okay on that end. You don't got to worry about making sure I got bread. Read.
And wear our own apparel.
You don't have to clothe me. I'll take care of that myself. But what?
Only let us be called by thy name. to take away our reproach.
But we're going to need your name so that I don't have a reproach. I need your protection. I need the seal that's on you to protect me from the death that's coming. So when it talks about the seal of the elect men, they're not just sealing themselves, they're sealing their whole household. So if they take on wives, it'll be due to this, not because of their carnal lust, because they like somebody or whatever the case is, and they want another woman. And then some of these women, even though they're taking on your name, some of them can be your wives in this day. But some of these women won't be your wife. Sometimes the sister may come with her cousin and her mother who need protection. They still are under your house. Just like the blood was on Moses' door. Not only did he have his wife, he had the mother, the mother that adopted him. She was protected from it too, because she was in the man's house. So that's on a spiritual level also. That have nothing to do with carnally laying with a woman. But if you want to look at it that way or examine it that way, to excuse what you want to do personally, just say that you want to go out and deal with a bunch of women if that's what you're doing. Don't try to say the scriptures backs this action, because there's a law with everything. What you have there?
Yes, this is
you're going into what that day is, right?
Right.
Let's go into that day.
2nd Ezra chapter 16, verse 31.
Go ahead.
Even so, in those days there shall be 3 or 4 left by them that search their houses with the sword, and the earth shall be laid waste, and the fields thereof shall wax old, and her ways and all her paths shall grow full of thorns, because no man traveled therethrough. The virgin shall mourn, having no bridegroom.
See that? Read.
The woman shall mourn, having no husbands. The daughters shall mourn, having no helpers. And the wars their bridegrooms shall be, and the wars shall their bridegrooms be destroyed, and their husbands shall perish of famine.
Because of the parish of famine, and people are dead and dying all over the place. When you see a healthy man that's operating with the Most High, who have a direction on where to go, the women that are left are going to come under these men for protection. So that's in that day. And that, give me that precept again.
2nd Ezra 16, 31 through 35.
16, 31 through 35 of 2nd Ezra. That's the precept you link in within that day. Are you dealing with this right now? No. So that doesn't apply to taking on many women. We cannot utilize this. Okay. Now there was scenarios even in the New Testament in which within the culture of Israel there were multiple wives. That's why in Timothy's it says that if you desire the office of a bishop or a deacon, you must be the husband of one wife. It wouldn't have that term there or that stipulation there if men who are Hebrews didn't have more than one wife. But in operate in a church setting, if you're looking to grow and to become 144,000, to grow and teach others, that means you desire the office of a bishop or deacon. Your desire should only be one woman, according to the law. See that? Of the New Testament. And what does it say about that in Romans? Let's go to Romans where Paul tells us that we're near the end. Those with wives be as though they have none.
Is that 1 Corinthians?
Yeah, 1 Corinthians, yeah. 1 Corinthians 7, excuse me. Go ahead.
1 Corinthians chapter 7, verse
Let me get it here. 1 Corinthians 7, and let's start at 27.
Okay, verse 27. Art thou bound unto a wife?
Are you bound to a wife? Which means, do you have a wife?
Seek not to be loosed.
Seek not to be single. Read.
Art thou loosed from a wife?
Are you single?
Seek not a wife.
Don't seek to have a wife. That means let the Most High bring these things to you. Read.
But if thou marry,
But if you marry,
thou hast not sinned.
you have not sinned. So it's not wrong to get a wife. Read.
And if a virgin marry, she have not sinned.
Go ahead.
Nevertheless, such shall have trouble in the flesh.
But if you marry, you're going to have trouble because you have two people that's going to see things two separate ways. So Paul is saying, well, listen, there's good in being married because you're able to satisfy certain needs. But all in all, there's trouble when you do. Read.
But I spare you.
But I spare you. Read.
Verse 29. But this I say, brethren, the time is short.
So he's saying, brethren, the time is short.
It remaineth that both they that have wives be as though they had none.
So when you operate and have to do with the will of the Most High and finish this work, you can't be taking on wives and think that your work for the Most High should diminish. Understand that your work must be done. So you taking on another wife is not going to change the obligation and what the Most High expects from your work. So the more people you take on, the less you'll be able to do for the Most High. And that's just the way it is. All right. Now I would go into the scriptures about divorce, but I know people go into the scriptures about divorce where it talks about in the beginning it wasn't so. Male and female, the Most High put together, and they go there and say, see, the Most High is saying that you can't have more than one wife. That scripture's not talking about that. It's talking about putting away your wife for nothing. That's what it's talking about. And what he's saying when it comes to divorce, in the beginning, it wasn't so. That scripture had nothing to do with a multiple wife scenario. And I'm saying that so sisters can't go there and use that anymore because it have nothing to do with that. That have something to do with a man putting away his wife for nothing. Okay? Just wanted to put that out there so that we can properly divide the word of truth. So I think I've answered that from every side, according to scripture. If a man is going to deal with a wife, you understand? You go to the father after asking her, and then you ask the father for his hand, and y'all get the agreement. Then you come back before the elder and you perform it with the agreement with the father giving away his daughter. You don't have to do it within you could do it if you want in the Christian setting or the European setting if you would like. That's up to you. But you can do it and write it down without doing that and get it notarized as an agreement. Okay? And if that's not done, if the woman is not given away, that's not marriage.
Let me do a quick,
Go ahead.
This is Exodus chapter 22, verse 16. It says, and if a man entice a maid that is not betrothed and lie with her, he shall surely endow her to be his wife. If her father utterly refuse to give her unto him, he shall pay money according to the dowry of virgins.
That's crystal clear. So there's no wifing without the father involved. Because that's who you are accountable for. To take on his daughter and treat her like he would if that was his wife. All right. So, let me open this up for questions here. I'll take questions for 5 minutes and I'll yield this to the brother. Let me save this.